The Enemy Inside the Gates, the powerful psychological blueprint of subconscious sabotage. Introduction. The Trojan horse of the mind. The ancient, impenetrable city of Troy withstood a grueling, bloody siege for 10 long years. The greatest army in the world, commanded by the most ruthless kings and legendary warriors of Greece, hurled themselves against Troy's massive stone walls. And for 10 years, the walls held. Troy could not be broken by external force. It could not be starved, and it could not be battered into submission. Troy fell in a single night, and it did not fall because the walls were breached. It fell because the Trojans themselves willingly, blindly dragged a wooden horse into their own courtyard. They unlocked their own gates from the inside. They were the architects of their own annihilation. I want you to look at the ruins of your own life. Look at the business you started with massive enthusiasm that mysteriously fell apart just as it was becoming profitable. Look at the incredible, healthy relationship you finally secured, only to find yourself picking toxic, irrational fights until the person finally left you. Look at the periods of intense, supreme discipline you built, waking up at 5 a.m., eating clean, outworking everyone, that you suddenly abandoned to go on a 3-week binge of laziness and self-destruction. You tell yourself a comforting, pathetic lie about these failures. You tell yourself that the market changed. You tell yourself that the partner was actually incompatible. You tell yourself that you just got burnt out or that the timing wasn't right. You blame the economy. You blame your childhood. You blame bad luck. You blame the army outside the walls. This audiobook is here to brutally, violently strip away that illusion. The army outside the walls did not defeat you. The world did not conspire against you. The terrifying, unforgiving truth is that the moment you began to win, the moment you began to ascend to a higher level of existence, a dark, hidden mechanism inside your own mind panicked. It walked up to the heavy iron gates of your discipline, unlocked the deadbolt, and let the enemy in. Welcome to the dark psychology of subconscious sabotage. You operate under the delusion that you want to be successful, wealthy, and deeply loved. You believe that your conscious mind is the king of your castle, but your subconscious mind controls less than 5% of your daily reality. 95% of your life is dictated by your subconscious, a vast, ancient biological machine running operating systems that were programmed when you were a child. And this subconscious machine does not care about your success. It does not care about your wealth. It cares about only one thing: familiarity. If you are accustomed to being broke, anxious, and struggling, your subconscious views misery as safe because it is a known variable. When you begin to succeed, you enter the unknown. Success triggers a biological alarm bell in your nervous system. Your subconscious perceives your victory as an existential threat, and it deploys the saboteur, a psychological assassin designed to destroy your progress and drag you back down to the baseline of your comfortable misery. In this exhaustive, monumental masterclass, we are going to perform an autopsy on your failures. We are going to shine a clinical, unforgiving light on the enemy inside the gates. You will learn the neurobiology of the upper limit problem, the exact, invisible thermostat in your brain that regulates your happiness and destroys your momentum. We will decode the avatars of sabotage, showing you exactly how your ego uses perfectionism, fake illnesses, and manufactured chaos as weapons of self-destruction. And finally, you will learn the dark art of the override. You will learn how to anticipate the saboteur, how to starve it of oxygen, and how to rewrite the deep subterranean code of your own mind so that success becomes your new biological baseline. If you want to continue believing that you were just a victim of bad luck, if you want to keep pointing the finger at the world to avoid the terrifying reality of your own reflection, turn this audio off right now. Go back to your familiar, comfortable failure. But if you are ready to look the traitor in the eyes, if you are ready to secure the gates, execute the saboteur, and claim absolute, unshakable sovereignty over your own destiny, then listen closely. It is time to stop burning your own empire to the ground. Chapter 1.
the biology of the comfort zone, the psychological thermostat. To defeat the saboteur, you must first understand the clinical mechanics of how it was built. Subconscious sabotage is not a demon, and it is not a personality flaw. It is a biological survival mechanism that is functioning perfectly, but executing the wrong directive. To understand this, we must look at the concept of homeostasis. In biology, homeostasis is the state of steady internal, physical, and chemical conditions maintained by living systems. For example, your body temperature is strictly regulated around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, 37 Celsius. If you walk out into a freezing blizzard, your core temperature drops. Your brain immediately detects the deviation from the baseline and triggers an automatic subconscious protocol to fix it. You start shivering. The shivering generates heat, pushing your temperature back up to the baseline. If you walk into a sauna, your core temperature spikes. Your brain detects the deviation and triggers a different protocol. You start sweating. The evaporation cools your skin, dragging your temperature back down to the baseline. Your mind possesses an exact psychological equivalent to this biological thermostat: the baseline of suffering. Psychologists, notably Gay Hendricks in his work on the upper limit problem, have observed that every human being has an internal subconscious thermostat setting for how much love, success, and wealth they believe they are allowed to experience. This setting was established in your early childhood. If you grew up in a chaotic household, if money was always scarce and a source of bitter arguments, or if you were taught that rich people are greedy and success requires sacrificing your soul, your subconscious mind established a very specific, low baseline. Your baseline is life is a struggle, comfort is temporary, disappointment is inevitable. Because you survived your childhood with this baseline, your primitive brain, specifically the amygdala and the basal ganglia, cataloged this state of struggle as safe. It is the devil you know. Now, look at what happens when you decide to change your life. You read the books, you start the business, you execute the discipline. You begin to make real money. You meet a partner who treats you with profound, stable respect. Your life begins to look incredible. Consciously, you are thrilled. You are finally getting what you always wanted. But subconsciously, a massive, terrifying alarm bell is ringing. The terror of the unknown. Your internal temperature has spiked way past your baseline. Your subconscious mind is looking at the peace, the wealth, and the success, and it is completely disoriented. It says, this is too much positive energy. This violates the rules of reality we established in childhood. The other shoe is going to drop. We are in unmapped territory, and the unknown equals death. Your brain is literally terrified of your success because it is unfamiliar. Just like the body begins to sweat to cool down in a sauna, your subconscious mind immediately initiates a cooling protocol to drag you back down to your familiar baseline of misery. It deploys the saboteur. Suddenly, for no logical reason, you feel an overwhelming urge to procrastinate on the most critical project in your business. Suddenly, you feel deeply irritated by your loving partner and start an argument over something entirely meaningless. Suddenly, you feel an uncontrollable impulse to blow your new savings on a lavish, unnecessary purchase. You are sweating. You are forcing the temperature back down. When the business fails, when the partner leaves, when the bank account is empty, you feel a profound, devastating sense of conscious grief. But deep, deep in the dark recesses of your subconscious mind, there is a sinister sigh of relief. The crisis has returned. The chaos is back. The temperature has normalized. You are safely back in the basement of your potential, where the saboteur knows exactly how to survive. You must internalize this terrifying truth. Your brain does not want you to be successful. Your brain wants you to be familiar. To build an empire, you have to fight your own nervous system. You have to learn how to tolerate the physical, visceral discomfort of things going incredibly well.
Chapter 2: The Architecture of the Saboteur, the Avatars of Ruin. The saboteur is a master of disguise. If it announced its presence and said, "Hello, I am here to destroy your life because I am afraid of success," your logical brain would instantly stop it. Therefore, the saboteur never reveals its true face. It operates through plausible deniability. It wears masks that look like virtues, valid excuses, or uncontrollable circumstances. It tricks your conscious mind into believing that the self-destruction was either a noble choice or an unavoidable tragedy. We must walk into the armory of your subconscious and identify the exact weapons the enemy is using. We must unmask the avatars of ruin. Avatar 1: The Perfectionist, the Coward's Shield. The most common and celebrated mask the saboteur wears is perfectionism. You have a massive, world-changing idea. You want to launch a product, publish a book, or release a piece of art. You spend months working on it. But as the deadline approaches, as the moment of actual public exposure draws near, the saboteur takes control. The saboteur looks at the project and says, "It isn't ready. The logo isn't quite right. The website copy needs to be rewritten for the 5th time. We can't launch this until it is absolutely flawlessly perfect." You tell your friends and colleagues, "I just have incredibly high standards. I am a perfectionist." You wear this label like a badge of honor. You believe it makes you sound elite. It is a lie. Perfectionism has absolutely nothing to do with high standards. Perfectionism is the saboteur's ultimate stalling tactic. The saboteur knows that the concept of perfect does not exist in the physical universe. It is an impossible mathematical asymptote. By convincing your conscious mind that the project must be perfect before it is launched, the saboteur guarantees that it will never be launched. If you never launch the product, you can never be criticized by the market. If you never publish the book, you can never receive a bad review. If you never step into the arena, you can never lose the fight. The perfectionist is just a coward wearing a tuxedo. The saboteur is protecting you from the threat of public judgment by ensuring you remain permanently invisible, trapped in the safe, sterile incubator of theoretical greatness. The sovereign understands that perfect is the enemy of shipped. The sovereign launches the flawed product, takes the bloody punches of market feedback, and iterates. The sovereign prefers the ugly reality of execution over the pristine fantasy of perfectionism. Avatar 2: The Chaos Manufacturer, the Distraction Protocol. This avatar of the saboteur is loud, dramatic, and intensely destructive. You are on the verge of a major breakthrough. You are 1 week away from closing the biggest deal of your life or taking the final exam that will launch your career. Your momentum is massive. Your focus is sharp. The temperature of success is rising rapidly. The saboteur panics. It needs to derail your focus immediately before you cross the threshold into victory. So it deploys the chaos manufacturer. Suddenly, out of nowhere, you start a massive blowout argument with your spouse over something completely trivial like the dishes. Or you decide this exact week is the perfect time to get involved in a toxic, energy-draining dispute with a family member. Or you randomly decide to start a massive home renovation project that requires all your attention. Your conscious mind believes that these events are just bad timing. You complain to your peers, "I have the worst luck. I was just about to close the deal, but my personal life blew up and I couldn't focus." This is not bad luck. This is a highly coordinated, subconscious assassination of your own focus. Your brain deliberately manufactured a high-stress emotional crisis to consume your cognitive bandwidth. By creating drama in your personal life, the saboteur gives you a socially acceptable excuse to fail in your professional life.
It is much easier for your ego to say, I failed the exam because my relationship was falling apart, than to face the terrifying pressure of taking the exam with zero excuses and risking genuine failure based solely on your own merit. The chaos manufacturer trades the terror of success for the comfortable, familiar adrenaline of drama. Avatar 3, the martyr, the savior complex. This is the most insidious avatar of the saboteur because it disguises self-destruction as supreme moral virtue. You are making progress on your own life. You are building your empire. But suddenly, a friend, a sibling, or a colleague comes to you with a massive, chaotic problem. They need to be rescued. They need money. They need hours of your time. They need emotional support. The saboteur sees the perfect escape route. You drop all of your own projects, abandon your own discipline, and dive head first into fixing their life. You spend weeks carrying their emotional weight. You lend them the capital you were supposed to invest in your own business. Your conscious mind feels incredibly noble. You tell yourself, I am a good person. I am selfless. I put others before myself. This is the lie of the martyr. You are not being selfless. You are using their catastrophe as a convenient excuse to abandon the terrifying, difficult work of building your own life. The saboteur knows that society will never criticize you for helping someone else. Society will praise you for being a great friend. The martyr uses extreme empathy as a hiding place. As long as you are busy fixing the broken people around you, you never have to face the terrifying pressure of fixing yourself. You are using the struggles of others as a human shield to protect you from the burden of your own potential. The integrated sovereign understands the oxygen mask protocol. You cannot save the drowning if you are sinking. The sovereign ruthlessly protects their own empire first, recognizing that the savior complex is often just fear dressed up in the robes of a saint.
Chapter 3. The Fraud Directive. The Architecture of Imposter Syndrome. When the saboteur cannot stop you from taking action through procrastination or chaos, and you actually manage to break through the barrier and achieve a high level of success, the subconscious mind deploys its final, most psychologically agonizing weapon. It deploys the fraud directive. Modern pop psychology calls this imposter syndrome. You get the promotion to the executive tier. You sign the massive client. You marry the incredible partner. You are standing at the absolute peak of the mountain you climbed. And instead of feeling a profound sense of pride, power, and sovereignty, you feel a cold, creeping sense of absolute terror. A voice whispers in the dark of your mind, "You don't belong here. You got lucky. You tricked them. You are a fraud. And any day now, they are going to figure you out, expose you to the world, and take it all away." You walk through your new, highly successful life, waiting for the executioner's axe to fall. You feel like a child wearing your father's suit, pretending to be a man. The sedative of unworthiness. Society treats imposter syndrome as a cute, relatable personality quirk. People laugh about it at conferences. They say, "Oh, everyone feels like an imposter sometimes. It just means you're humble." The sovereign views imposter syndrome not as a quirk, but as a hostile, psychological infection engineered to destroy your ability to hold power. Why does the saboteur generate this feeling of being a fraud? Because if you truly internalized your success, if you looked in the mirror and said, "I am brilliant, I earned every single piece of this empire through my own ruthless competence, and I absolutely deserve to be the king," you would permanently alter your biological baseline. You would permanently destroy the old, comfortable, miserable identity that your subconscious mind was trying to protect. Imposter syndrome is the saboteur's desperate attempt to keep your old identity alive on life support. By convincing you that your success is a fluke, the saboteur ensures that you do not mentally integrate your new power.
It keeps you in a state of high anxiety. And because you feel like a fraud, you subconsciously begin looking for ways to prove the saboteur right. You start overworking yourself to the point of exhaustion to prove you belong, leading to burnout. Or you start shrinking in meetings, failing to assert your authority because you don't want to draw attention to your incompetence. Eventually, this lack of authentic authority causes you to lose the position you earned. The prophecy fulfills itself. You are demoted or you lose the client, and the saboteur whispers, "See, I told you we didn't belong up there. Now we are back where we belong." The eradication of the fraud. To defeat the fraud directive, you must execute a violent psychological override. You must separate your feelings from your data. Imposter syndrome relies on emotion. The sovereign relies on cold, hard, empirical evidence. When the voice of the imposter whispers that you do not belong, you do not argue with it using emotions. You do not try to feel confident. You look at the mathematical ledger of your reality. Did the corporation accidentally deposit the revenue in my account? Or did I execute the 500 cold calls that secured the deals? Did I magically teleport to the top of the mountain? Or did I climb it step by grueling step for the last 5 years? You did the work. The sweat was real. The hours were real. Therefore, the outcome is mathematically deserved. You must realize that the feeling of faking it is actually just the biological sensation of growth. When a snake sheds its old skin to grow larger, the new skin is highly sensitive and uncomfortable. It feels wrong. Imposter syndrome is not a sign that you are a fake. It is the biological sensation of your old, weak identity tearing away to make room for the sovereign. You must learn to tolerate the discomfort of the new skin until it hardens into armor.
Chapter 4. The Thermostat Audit. Mapping Your Self-Destruction. We have diagnosed the biology. We have unmasked the avatars of ruin. We have exposed the fraud directive. But listening to this analysis changes nothing if you do not actively drag your own specific saboteur out of the dark and force it into the light of the conscious mind. A trap only works if you do not know it is there. The moment you see the wire, it ceases to be a trap. It becomes an obstacle you can step over. You must map your own psychological minefield. You are going to perform the thermostat audit. This requires an agonizing level of self-awareness. You must strip away your ego and look at your own hypocrisies with the cold, unblinking eye of a predator. Step 1. The threshold of panic. Take a private, secure journal. You are going to identify your exact upper limit triggers. Think back over the last 5 years of your life. Identify the 3 most significant moments where everything was going incredibly well. A period of high financial success, intense physical fitness, or profound relationship harmony that suddenly, inexplicably, fell apart. Write down the exact timeline. What was the precise moment the temperature got too hot? How much money was in the bank when you suddenly made a terrible financial decision? How many days of perfect diet and training did you achieve before you completely abandoned the routine? You are looking for the numerical or emotional threshold where your subconscious mind triggered the cooling protocol. Step 2. The modus operandi of the saboteur. Now look at how you destroyed the success. You must identify which mask your saboteur wears. Did you find a tiny flaw in the project and use it as an excuse to delay the launch forever? You are the perfectionist. Did you suddenly become obsessed with a dramatic political argument on social media or start a fight with your spouse right before a big deadline? You are the chaos manufacturer. Did you abandon your business plan to spend 3 weeks helping a highly toxic friend move out of their apartment? You are the martyr. Write down the exact mechanism you used. You must document the weapon your subconscious uses against you so clearly that the next time you reach for it, you instantly recognize it. Step 3.
The Sovereign Override Protocol. Once you have mapped the threshold and identified the weapon, you must write the override directive. This is the absolute, unyielding, pre-programmed response you will deploy the next time the saboteur attempts to hijack your nervous system. You must program the response now in a state of cold logic so that you do not have to think when the emotional panic hits. The threshold. When my bank account reaches $50,000, my saboteur will trigger. The MO. I will suddenly feel an overwhelming logical-sounding urge to reward myself by purchasing a luxury watch I do not need to bring the balance back down to my comfortable poverty baseline. The override directive. When the urge to buy the watch hits, I will recognize it as a biological panic attack. I will execute a mandatory 7-day purchasing freeze. I will take $10,000 and immediately lock it into an illiquid investment account to violently assert my dominance over the saboteur and raise my internal thermostat. Look at the transformation on the page. You have taken the invisible, silent killer that has been executing your potential from the shadows for your entire life, and you have pinned it to the table under a blinding spotlight. You have stripped it of its camouflage. This is the agonizing, necessary realization you must endure to break the cycle of failure. You are not unlucky. The universe is not conspiring against you. The tragic, terrifying reality is that your greatest enemy has been sleeping in your own bed, speaking with your own voice, and using your own fears to keep you trapped in the basement of your potential. Every time you engage in drama right before a victory, every time you delay the launch for one more edit, you are letting the traitor open the gates of Troy. But diagnosing the traitor is half the battle. Knowing the saboteur exists does not automatically kill it. Recognizing the biological urge to retreat to your comfort zone does not teach you how to forge the mental iron required to push through the terror of the unknown. In part 2 of this masterclass, we will move from diagnosis to total, ruthless warfare. We will learn the mechanics of the chaos anchor, how to stabilize your nervous system when the terror of success hits. We will explore the dark part of identity assassination, teaching you how to permanently kill the comfortable, miserable version of yourself so the saboteur has no home to return to. We will learn how to rewrite the deep, subterranean code of the basal ganglia to make success your new, unshakable biological baseline. We will learn how to execute the traitor. The gates are locked. The audit is complete. Prepare yourself. The true purging of the mind is about to begin.
Chapter 5. The Mechanics of the Chaos Anchor. Welcome back to the battlefield. In Part 1, you mapped the minefield. You identified your threshold of panic. You unmasked the specific avatar your saboteur uses, the perfectionist, the chaos manufacturer, or the martyr. You wrote your override directive. You have pulled the invisible enemy out of the dark and pinned it to the table under the blinding light of your conscious awareness. But mapping a minefield is not the same as walking through it. When you begin to execute your override directive, when you actually force yourself to launch the imperfect product, when you refuse to engage in the petty argument, when you lock your money away instead of spending it, your subconscious mind is not going to simply surrender. It is going to fight back. It is going to escalate the panic. When you push through the upper limit, your nervous system will flood your body with cortisol. You will feel a profound, visceral sense of anxiety, disorientation, and dread. Your brain will scream at you that you are making a fatal mistake. You will feel as if you are floating in zero gravity, untethered from reality. To survive this biological storm without retreating to your comfort zone, you must deploy the first weapon of the sovereign, the chaos anchor. The illusion of control. Why does success feel so terrifying to the uncalibrated mind? Because success removes the familiar constraints of failure.
When you are broke, your life is incredibly predictable. You know exactly what you cannot afford. You know exactly what your problems are. When you are single and miserable, you know exactly what your weekends look like. Failure is a box. It is a cage. But a cage is solid. You can touch the walls. When you suddenly become wealthy, when you enter a healthy relationship, when your business explodes with growth, the cage disappears. You are suddenly standing in an open field. The possibilities are infinite, and the human brain, specifically the amygdala, is absolutely terrified of infinity. Infinity represents the unknown, and the unknown represents danger. Your brain desperately wants to build the cage again just to feel something solid. The chaos anchor is the psychological technique of building a healthy, artificial cage of control to pacify your amygdala while you navigate the terrifying expanse of success. Dropping the anchor. A chaos anchor is a small, rigid, non-negotiable physical routine that you execute with absolute robotic precision, specifically when your life is expanding rapidly. It must be a physical action. You cannot think your way out of biological panic. You must anchor your nervous system to the physical world. When your business is scaling so fast that you feel like you are losing control, you do not try to control the business. You drop the anchor. The physical anchor. You commit to running exactly 3 miles at exactly 5 a.m. along the exact same route every single day. The environmental anchor. You commit to spending exactly 20 minutes meticulously cleaning and organizing your workspace before you open a single email. The dietary anchor. You commit to eating the exact same highly structured meal for breakfast and lunch every single day. Why do we do this? Because when your subconscious mind is screaming, "We are in unmapped territory, everything is changing, we are going to die," your prefrontal cortex can point to the chaos anchor and say, "No, we are not. Look at the data. We woke up at the exact same time. We ran the exact same route. We ate the exact same food. We are in total control." The anchor provides a heavy, dense point of gravity. It absorbs the excess anxiety. By controlling a microscopic physical variable with absolute totalitarian discipline, you trick your nervous system into feeling safe while you conquer the macro variables of your empire. Practice Application 1. The Anchor Protocol. You must forge your anchor before the storm hits. If you try to build an anchor while you are drowning in success-induced anxiety, it will fail. Define the anchor. Select one physical daily routine. It must take no longer than 30 minutes. It must require physical exertion or meticulous physical organization. For example, a heavy lifting session, a freezing cold shower, or the aggressive cleaning of your physical environment. The trigger condition. Identify your specific biological panic symptom. Does your chest tighten? Does your mind race? Do you feel the sudden urge to pick a fight or procrastinate? The execution. When the trigger condition occurs, when you feel the saboteur waking up because things are going too well, you do not argue with the feeling. You immediately execute the anchor. You lock your brain into the rigid, physical routine until the cortisol dissipates and the prefrontal cortex regains command.
Chapter 6. The Dark Art of Identity Assassination. The chaos anchor will keep you stable in the short term. It will allow you to survive the initial shockwaves of breaking through your upper limit. But it is only a temporary countermeasure. If you rely solely on the anchor, you will be fighting a war of attrition against your own subconscious for the rest of your life. Eventually, your willpower will crack, and the saboteur will drag you back down. To achieve permanent, unshakable sovereignty, you must remove the saboteur's reason for existing. Why does the saboteur exist? It exists to protect your old identity. It exists to protect the familiar,
comfortable, small version of you that survived your childhood. Therefore, to kill the saboteur, you must destroy what it is protecting. You must engage in the dark, painful, and terrifying process of identity assassination. The ghost in the machine. We cling to our identities with pathological desperation. Your ego is constructed entirely of the stories you tell yourself about who you are. I am the kind of person who struggles with money, but I am spiritually rich. I am the funny friend who can't get his life together. I am a survivor of trauma, and my pain makes me deep and complex. These stories are not objective reality. They are psychological software programs running in the background of your basal ganglia. They are the ghosts in the machine. When you start to succeed, when you start making money, when you start building a stable, drama-free life, you are literally contradicting the code of the ghost. You are acting out of character. The saboteur panics because if you become a highly successful, wealthy, emotionally stable powerhouse, the struggling, funny, traumatized version of you has to die, and the ego is absolutely terrified of death. To secure your empire, you must willingly execute the ghost. You must burn the old software to ashes so the saboteur has absolutely nothing left to protect. The funeral of the weak self. Identity assassination requires a ruthless, unsentimental severing of ties with the narrative of your past. You must stop deriving value, comfort, or social currency from your failures. You must stop defining yourself by what you survived. When you sit around with your old friends, drinking in the crab bucket, and you bond by complaining about how unfair the economy is, or how terrible your bosses are, you are feeding the ghost. You are keeping the old identity alive on life support. You are proving to your subconscious that you still belong in the basement. The sovereign executes the ghost through total narrative starvation. You stop telling the story of your struggle. You stop participating in conversations that validate weakness. You stop identifying with your limitations. You must look at the old version of yourself, the version that procrastinated, the version that tolerated toxic relationships, the version that was terrified of their own potential, and you must view that person as a completely different biological entity, a stranger who no longer lives in your body. The void of becoming. When you assassinate your old identity, you will experience a profound, terrifying period of psychological emptiness. You will enter the void. You will not know who you are. The old friends will say you have changed. The old jokes will not be funny. The old comforts will feel hollow. You will feel like an imposter because the new identity, the king, the architect, the sovereign, has not fully hardened yet. This is the exact moment that 99% of people fail. The void is so uncomfortable, so isolating, and so quiet that they panic. They resurrect the ghost. They sabotage their new life just to feel the familiar, comforting warmth of their old misery. They go back to the toxic ex. They blow the money. They burn the business down. Thank God, the ego whispers, we are back to normal. You must refuse the resurrection. You must sit in the freezing, isolating quiet of the void. You must tolerate the feeling of not knowing who you are, trusting that the fire of your new discipline is slowly forging the titanium skeleton of your new identity. You must let the weak version of yourself stay dead in the ground.
Chapter 7. Rewriting the Code. The Basal Ganglia Override. You have dropped the chaos anchor to survive the panic. You have executed identity assassination to burn the old software. Now, you must rewrite the code. You must permanently alter the biological thermostat of your subconscious mind so that success, wealth, and profound stability become your new, unshakable normal. You must rewrite the basal ganglia. The basal ganglia is the ancient structure deep in your brain responsible for habit formation, pattern recognition, and automatic behaviors. It is the hard drive of your subconscious. When you drive a car home from work and realize you don't remember the last 5 miles, that is the basal ganglia operating on autopilot. Currently, your basal ganglia is programmed to interpret high stress, financial anxiety, and emotional drama as normal, safe. It interprets peace, surplus capital, and high-level execution as abnormal, threat. We are going to flip the wiring. We are going to use the mechanism of neuroplasticity to force the basal ganglia to accept massive success as the new baseline of safety. The law of micro-exposure. You cannot rewrite the basal ganglia with a single massive shock. If you try to force your brain to accept a radically new reality at all once, the amygdala will trigger a massive systemic panic and the saboteur will overwhelm you. You must rewrite the code using the law of micro-exposure. In clinical psychology, if a patient has a crippling phobia of spiders, the therapist does not lock them in a room full of tarantulas. That would cause a psychotic break. The therapist shows the patient a picture of a spider for 5 seconds, then they calm the nervous system. The next day, they show a video. The next week, a spider in a glass jar across the room. They slowly, systematically expose the brain to the perceived threat in highly controlled microdoses until the amygdala realizes that the threat is actually harmless. The baseline of fear is permanently altered. You must apply this exact clinical protocol to your phobia of success. Titrating the upper limit. You must intentionally expose your nervous system to the threat of things going incredibly well and then consciously force your body to remain calm in the presence of that positive energy. This requires exquisite, hyper-vigilant self-awareness. Imagine you are having an incredibly productive, flawless day at work. You have cleared your desk, closed 2 major deals, and your momentum is massive. The amateur, the sabotage loop. The amateur feels the temperature rising. The basal ganglia senses the abnormal high of success. The saboteur whispers, "This is too good. We need to cool down." The amateur immediately opens social media, seeks out a controversial political argument, and spikes their cortisol, or they pick a fight with a colleague. They artificially induce stress to drag their nervous system back down to the familiar baseline of chaos. The sovereign, the micro-exposure protocol. The sovereign feels the temperature rising. The basal ganglia senses the abnormal high. The saboteur whispers. The sovereign freezes. The sovereign recognizes the biological urge to sabotage. Instead of seeking chaos, the sovereign stops working. They lean back in their chair. They close their eyes. They focus entirely on the physical sensation of the success, the lightness in the chest, the clarity of the mind, the terrifying lack of immediate problems. They hold that feeling. The amygdala begins to panic. The urge to check the phone, to find a problem, to create friction becomes almost unbearable. The sovereign breathes deeply. They force their heart rate to remain slow. They sit in the blinding light of the positive energy for exactly 2 minutes, consciously telling their nervous system, "This is safe. This feeling of absolute victory is not a threat. This is our new reality." And then they go back to work. The accumulation of the new normal. By executing this micro-exposure protocol, you are engaging in psychological weightlifting. You are expanding the capacity of your upper limit container. Every time you tolerate the discomfort of things going perfectly without ruining them, every time you let a moment of profound peace exist without manufacturing a crisis, you are laying down new neural pathways. Over weeks, months, and years of relentless micro-exposure, the neuroplasticity of your brain physically alters. The basal ganglia overwrites the old code. One day, you will wake up, look at your massive empire, your unshakable bank account, and your peaceful, high-value relationships, and your nervous system will not panic. Your brain will look at the supreme level of success and say, "Yes, this is exactly where we belong. This is familiar. This is safe." You have raised the thermostat. You have made greatness your biological baseline. The saboteur has starved to death in the light. Chapter 8. The Sovereignty Mandate. Owning the Empire. We have reached the end of the autopsy. The blueprints are laid bare on the table. We began this journey by stripping away the comforting, pathetic lies you have told yourself for years. We exposed the brutal reality that you are not a victim of a hostile universe, but a prisoner of your own biological programming. You looked the traitor in the eyes. You learned the clinical mechanics of psychological homeostasis. You unmasked the perfectionist who hides in the incubator, the chaos manufacturer who trades victory for drama, and the martyr who uses human shield against their own potential. You dissected the fraud directive, learning to separate the cold, hard empirical data of your earned success from the biological illusion of imposter syndrome. You mapped your own specific triggers through the thermostat audit, pulling the invisible saboteur out of the dark and pinning it to the light. You forged the chaos anchor, a heavy, rigid physical routine to stabilize your nervous system when the terror of the unknown hits. You endured the freezing, isolating void of identity assassination, letting the weak, comfortable version of yourself die so the sovereign could be born. And finally, you learned the clinical mechanics of neuroplasticity. You learned how to use microexposure to rewrite the ancient code of your basal ganglia, forcing your brain to accept massive, unyielding success as its new biological baseline of safety. You now possess the entire psychological architecture required to secure the gates of your mind. But architecture is just a blueprint. Knowledge without execution is just intellectual entertainment. There is a terrifying, inescapable reality you must now face. The enemy is no longer a secret. You can no longer claim ignorance. You can no longer tell yourself that you just have bad luck when a relationship fails or a business collapses. You can no longer blame the economy, your childhood, or the alignment of the stars. The next time you feel the sudden, inexplicable urge to pick a fight with your partner when everything is peaceful, the next time you decide to redesign the logo for the 50th time instead of launching the product, the next time you feel the creeping terror of imposter syndrome telling you that you do not belong at the top of the mountain, you will know exactly what is happening. You will hear the biological alarm bell ringing. You will feel the saboteur's hand on the deadbolt of the gate. In that exact agonizing microsecond, you face the ultimate choice of your existence. Will you surrender to the biology? Will you let the traitor open the gates, burn the empire to the ground, and drag you back down to the warm, comfortable, miserable basement of your potential where it is safe and familiar? Or will you deploy the override? Will you drop the anchor, look the fear in the eye, tolerate the agonizing discomfort of the unknown, and force your nervous system to expand its capacity for greatness? The Trojan horse is inside the walls, but you are holding the torch. You are the architect of your annihilation, or you are the sovereign of your destiny. The biology is ancient, but the choice is yours. Do not let the fear of the height convince you to jump. Now, go and secure the gates. Thank you for staring into the abyss and confronting the traitor within with quick audiobooks. If this masterclass has shattered your illusions, unmasked your saboteur, and given you the keys to your own psychological sovereignty, ensure you subscribe, like, and return for more uncompromising, relentless deep dives into psychology, power, and the pursuit of absolute freedom. Until next time, execute the override, stay sovereign, and stay dangerous.